Hello class, this is Mr. Perez again. I'm gonna teach you how to make a shadow for an object in Illustrator. First, let's make a new document. I go File, New. In this case, I'm gonna make one artboard. So I go to one, and then I'm gonna make it 7 inches by 7 inches. You can make it any size you like. And I go OK. Then in Illustrator, I ended up having my artboard here. Let's pretend that I draw an object. Let's say I draw a sphere, and to make a perfect circle, I press Shift as I draw the circle. This one has a black stroke and the fill is white. So if I want to have like a gradient to fill it up, I go to my toolbar here and I click gradient. And I get my basic gradient, which is nice, but I want other things to have. I know that most objects, when they're on a light color table, they reflect some of the light on the darker, what is supposed to be the darkest side. So if light is coming down this way, some of the light will hit right back on this object. That means that I need to fix this. So I can start playing with the angle on which the light is hitting the object. And that is not right. Maybe minus 90 or minus 60. That might be better. And it's kind of hard to keep playing with this. It's better off to use the gradient tool, which is right here. Then you can click and drag and you can make the gradient that way. And according to how you move it, it's how the gradient works. But you know, this is too dark here. Light do bounce. So I'm gonna move my slider over here. I'm gonna click right here. I double click and I can make a darker value here. Here it should be lighter, but definitely the darkest area should be on the horizon, which is usually around the equator of the shape. Okay, and I can move the slider to create effects. Now this is a linear shadow, a linear value. I can go radial, which looks more like a sphere, and I can move it that way, or I can click and drag and work on this. That looks a little better, eh? I can move some of these values over here, on and on, until I create what I find correct. I can click, make a little more of that light color, and with the little sliders here, you can add a specular highlight. Now, let's say I'm happy with this object, and I go, okay, this is a beautiful sphere. Now I'm gonna cast a shadow down here, and that's quite easy to do. And yes, we're gonna do a gradient, just a little different. So I'm gonna make a new shadow. Let me go reset these values here. I'm gonna draw an ellipse, which is gonna be my shadow. Let's say that I'm happy with this here. Then I'm gonna put a gradient. Now I don't wanna use the same gradient that I have here. In this case, I want my gradient to go from dark to nothing, literally. So I'm gonna get rid by just dragging or clicking and dumping the values. Then this one here, I'm gonna go linear, and then the one here, let's say I make it black, and then the one here, I'm gonna make it totally see-through. So with no opacity. It's literally see-through. But now I look at it and I go, whoops, I don't need the stroke around it, the black line around it, because then it looks like a hole. So I click on the stroke here and I hit the none, and the stroke is gone. This is great, but it's backwards. I go, oops, this is backwards here. This is not working out for me. So I'm gonna go to my gradient menu here, and let me see. I click on the gradient and I'm gonna flip it. So you can reverse gradients. Let me see. Whoops, I was dealing with the stroke. I'm sorry. I need to pull the gradient first. See, you always have to click the right things. So make sure you have the fill pull out, not the stroke. I go to gradient. Now I can flip it. And I can move it up here. And this is all great, but if you look closely, you realize that that gradient, it's really, whoops. I mean, the gradient is really on top of the sphere. I go, oh, this is not good. So I need to change the stacking order. In other words, I need to change the shadow. I need to send it to the back. And that's quite easy. There's a few ways to do it. One way is with the layers palette. I can open the sub layers, click on the top one. You see selected. The little blue dot tell me that it's selected. I can click, push the mouse button down, and I can drag it to the bottom. And now it's below it. And if we look at this now, you have a sphere with a nice shadow. Okay. I can also take the sphere and I can get rid of the stroke around it. So I click on it, I go to stroke and none. So it looks more realistic here. I can still edit that shadow any way I want. So I can make it larger. It's behind the other object, so maybe I want to play with it a little more. Maybe I want to show more of that dark color. Whoops. Again, I was messing up with the stroke. Make sure you had the fill. There we go. So now I can go to it, fill this up. Maybe I can have more of that dark showing. And as I slide this, you get to see how the dark value shows more or shows less. So this is a good way to make a shadow on an object by just going from 100% full to 0 in the transparency, the opacity. So you see 0%, and in this case, the opacity is 100%. It has a fill to it. I hope this helped you out to draw more realistic looking objects. This is a very simple tutorial, but can be helpful to a lot of things. If you have more questions, just make sure to ask. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.